So there's this common misconception that when you finish PTA school, you're done learning.
Yeah.
You're really not.
No. Well, it depends on how much you want to put into it. You could be done.
That's actually a good point. So today we're going to talk about embracing the journey of continuing education credits, license renewals, options, prices, not specifically, but in general.
Yeah.
And just know that the learning never stops.
You're listening to the PT Assistants podcast with your hosts, Ken
and Laura. Thanks for joining for another exciting episode. Alrighty, so CEUs. What does it stand for, Ken?
Yeah. I was going to ask you.
Too late to beat you to it.
Well, they're going to change the name, aren't they? It's not CEUs anymore.
Is it change?
I think it is. So it was CEU, Continuing Education Units, which we need 15 as PTAs, 15 hours, 15 credits, 15 units, whatever it is.
At least here in Nevada.
But they're changing them to like continued competencies, so it's like CC instead.
I heard that.
Yeah, it's not going to be CEUs anymore. Although our CEUs have been different. So there was a time where Laura had to figure out exactly when it happened. But when I graduated, and we knew this because this month we had to renew our licenses, my credits or my license expired the date I got my license issued.
Which is the way it is done now.
Which is the way it's done now. So I got issued my license on July 15th. And July 15th is when my license expired. So my units had to be completed before July 15th. However, when Laura passed her test, it was different.
Mm-hmm.
So yours is due the 31st, which, have you done yours?
It'll be done.
See, so this is why we're talking about this today, because CEUs, they can be very informative, very educational, very practical, but they can also just, you can scoot on by without ever having to really do anything.
Yeah, and it all depends, of course, on the state that you're in, because each state has a different requirement. And I think that's part of the frustration of CEUs is there's just not anything that works across the board. Like, I wish it was like a straight up, like, federal in a way. Yes or no, if it counts. Does that make sense?
Like just across the board?
Yeah, like, so for example, you could have a CEU count in Oklahoma, but it won't count in California because the requirements are different. And I wish we just had like a high standard. So no matter which CEU you took, because again, for travels, it's frustrating because you have to figure out if all the places that you have your license and you're in travel therapy, if those are all going to count. We've talked to many physical therapist assistant. I can't talk today. But we've talked to many PTAs who travel, and they're like, oh, yeah, the CEUs, you just have to cross-reference. Okay, is this one going to be good for this place? Is this going to be good for this place? Can I count it for this license? So
that's
it's
a
just
good question. I don't even know. Like, they don't have to just go off their home state?
No, you have to go based off of where your license is near. Now, the whole thing with the states combining, oh gosh, what's that?
You always forget this. Starts with the C.
I don't know why.
Starts with a C.
Do you know it?
Yeah.
What is?
Well, I just want to see if you can get there. Compact.
Compact. No, I wanted to say.
Jeez, you gotta write this down somewhere.
I think I got a little, brain damage. Well, no, I just can't remember that. But
we're talking about the CEUs, different states, compact. If you're travelers,
yes, with the compact states, it doesn't matter as much because you only need the one license, and then as long as you have your home state license, with the compact state, you can travel around, so you don't have to have multiple license. But for example, Nevada, California are not compact states. So you have to get a separate license. So like if I was working in Nevada, my home state is Nevada, and I wanna go and do a couple of, months in California, I have to get a second license in California. Well, in order to get that second license or renew, I have to meet their continuing education. So then I
I
have to
thought
do
every state
different.
was 15 credits, 15 units.
No, it's can be very state by state. It's a
Alright, well,
pain.
if anybody's listening, let us know how many units you guys require. I was almost sure that every state was
I
15, but
think they're
I don't
trying
know.
to stay with
I
the
know not every
15.
CEU is accepted in every
Yeah,
state. That I
that's
do
more of
know.
the issue.
But I thought just PTAs across the board, everybody needs 15 units, and you just have to make sure that the credits you're going after apply to your state.
Well, and I know it's, like, slightly different. Some call 15 units, some were, like, 7.5 hour like, it's some would be hours, some would be units, some counted the full amount. It was just weird. But it's more about the CEUs. I wish, like, we had across the board, like, here's the approved list no matter what state you're in. Because then it'd just be easier, I feel like, to figure out things, easier to find ones, definitely if you're needing multiple states requirements. So I wish there was something that was, like, across the board that would be like, "Hey, this is just a standard for continuing education." If that makes sense. But
No, yeah, I feel like if there's a standard, that would be nice, and like you said, it'd definitely help out the travelers and people maybe moving from state to state. And if the compact just kind of starts encompassing more and more states, which it looks like it is,
I think they're trying.
they're working on maybe making everybody fall under the compact just because people who are traveling or people who are in service, like they are able to jump to different states and still practice without having to jump through a whole bunch of
Mhm.
hoops. Like we know a traveler right now who who they it wasn't they got denied because I was trying to figure it out, but they just kind of left it in limbo on their new license. So
Mm.
because of that, they weren't able to transfer just yet, which just caused headaches where this could all be avoided if they were all under the same license.
Yeah. And it's like you said, like, if you're military too, like, they usually kinda speed those at least out here in Nevada because we do have bases, but they speed them through a little bit easier, like, you get a market. But it's like if you're a spouse of someone military and that kinda stuff, you are gonna usually move around a little bit more, and so having that convenience and then not having to worry about all the different places that you have a license to and whether or not the CEU is gonna work for that or for that or that, like, the amount of time you have to spend just kinda double checking that is just annoying. And it's like, you guys can make it somewhat easier, and definitely if, like, you have to do all of it on your own. So, kinda like again, I know we were talking about, like, some of the goods and the bads, and we hit some of the bads now, but, like, another bad, they're expensive. They can definitely get up there. And so if you're trying to keep your license and like maybe you're out of work for medical reasons or you're taking some time off, like they add up just to keep your license renewed and you need it to renew your license even if you're not practicing.
I feel like a lot of that depends on what you're using in order to get your credits, right?
Mhm.
So there is what me and Laura both use is MedBridge, which is a strictly almost
Popular one.
online platform where you just watch a video, you take a test, and Bob's your uncle. There you go. You have your credits. Now, there are in person classes, which I'm sure are substantially more beneficial because it's hands on learning. I think you have to, depending on the course, I know you have to take a test at the end in order to kind of
Totally.
reinforce your learning. And I'm sure those are, you pick the classes that you want to take in order to advance yourself in your setting. So if I'm working in an outpatient ortho clinic, I'll probably take a CEU on shoulder mobility or knee mobility and different manual techniques. I'm not going to take a vestibular CEU, spend $500 on it, because who
Mhm.
knows when I'm going to use it. Unless you're just genuinely interested, which is great, but just how often are you going to use those skills, you know? And speaking of the price, so we use MedBridge, which I want to say is like 250 for the
Give or
year.
take.
If you are a member of the APTA, so this is anybody who's a member of the APTA, just so you know, you get a discount on MedBridge. So if you're a new grad, you're about to finish up, or maybe your first round of CEUs are coming around the corner and you happen to already be a member of the APTA, look into it because you will get a discount on signing up for MedBridge. You have classes like rock tape, and Graston, like they all have their specific courses that you can take. Sometimes you have to buy the tools, you have to pay for the course. And this leads to, like you said, like could be thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
And that's the hard part because you want to take these courses, but you got to shell out a good amount of money for them. Another thing you can look into is seeing if your work will pay for those classes. Some will, some won't. It could be something you discuss when you're applying for jobs and asking, hey, is there a certain dollar amount that I can get towards my CEUs? Will they pay for them? And that way you can start budgeting. Okay, I want to take this course. My job is going to give me $500. Okay, I can go take that McKinsey program that I want to take.
Mhm.
I think Laura, you said for your job, you guys host certain CEUs and then you're able
We
to just sit in on them.
host a good amount, so we can sit on them technically if we're full-time. So, me being part-time, I don't get access. Well, I get access to them. I'm not supposed to get them covered, but that's something they're working with me a little bit. My goal is to make an this, like, year is to make an in-person CEU class. Unfortunately, the ones I really want to take this past year, one fell on an event for a friend that I couldn't miss, and then the other one was BFR training, which I was really hoping to take. I think I was non-weight bearing at the time still, and so if you can't perform or participate in the class you're learning or the technique you're learning, I didn't wanna take a spot. So I wasn't even sure if I was gonna do it, so I kinda held off on. But, like what you said, it adds up so quickly, and the one bummer is too, with a lot of the new techniques and cool tools and things that are kinda newer, those are the ones that you need to be in person for. And those are the ones that usually cost an arm and a leg and a kidney, and it's tough if your work won't cover it, even half of it. Like, you look at the Graston's, like, over $1,000 because they require you to get the tools, last time I checked, at least, again,
Yeah,
when I
because
checked.
I think we've done an episode on CEUs. I think when we first started,
Mhm,
and we looked into Graston. I think there's like three different programs that we looked into and looked at the pricing for each one, and like it just was hard to like think about doing them just because they're just so expensive. So it's you really have to start budgeting, figuring out which ones you want, and again, make sure that you can do them in your clinic. So this Graston course, if you take it, you spend $1,500 for it. You have all these tools, but then now your PT is saying you can't use that technique, which
mhm,
Graston is usually okay. Like I haven't met a PT that isn't okay with it, but there
yeah,
are certain techniques that PTs will not be okay with, whether it's not evidence backed or maybe they don't have the equipment or they don't want to include it in their plan of care, whatever the case may be. So you just shelled out all this money for a technique that you can't do, even
mhm,
though you're trained for it. So one of my CIs, just to kind of segue into this portion, she took a continuing education on Parkinson's disease. So as the was it Lee Silverton's LSVT Big and Loud. So it's a continuing
I remember
education
the big and loud
specifically
part.
yeah, so it's specifically on Parkinson's disease. So big movements, loud voice. But the problem with learning everything that she could, because her PT was not credentialed in LSVT big, she was not allowed to employ the techniques that she learned because they were not they're not inside the plan of care. She can still use some of the things that she did, but she cannot mention that they
Call
are
it.
LSVT exercises because you just can't do that. So there might be little wiggle room, gray areas, I suppose, that you can do. But I guess the point of the story is just making sure that if you're going to be spending a lot of money on a course, clear it with your facility, with your PT, making sure that you can utilize this. If not, then just kind of go with your own knowledge. Because there are courses that I want to take that I'm sure my PTs won't let me do, but I'm genuinely curious. When am I going to do
Mhm.
them? I don't know because I don't know when I want to spend the money in order to take these classes that I'll never do.
But that is also a good thing about, like, CEUs and courses is, like, at least if you are curious about some, you are getting hours towards renewing. So, like, if you are curious about, "Hey, I'm not sure about, like, the BFR. I really wanna know more information before I feel like it's appropriate to use it on patients," or, "Do I really think this will be beneficial?" It's a great way to try things out. It's a great way to expand maybe even ideas and get new ways to help patients. But the bummer is, like anything, there's pros and cons. Downside is those are usually very
Well, it's like, how
expensive.
high am I willing to spend in order to just learn?
Yeah, which in all fairness, we all got a degree, so we're all willing to spend some.
Well, I was forced to learn everything. I wasn't able to just like, oh, we're going over
I'll
transfers
pick and
today.
choose you.
Nah, I'm good. I
I
just want to
feel
learn
ya.
ortho. Like, I'm just gonna skip that test because I'm not going into that setting, so I'm good. Like, I wasn't able to
I
do
don't
that.
blame you. But, like, if you think about it, for example, like, I took it so I had MedBridge, and I was able to use a online training video, I guess, course. It didn't count because, like, you can watch as many videos on MedBridge. That's one nice thing. Like, it's not just like, "Hey, you hit your hours and that's all you get." So, like, you can refer it even if you go over, if you're just looking for something, like, that's the one nice part. You can just watch all these videos. At one point, they had a Graston video on there, and it wasn't even accredited for Nevada, like, it was different states, but Nevada didn't take it as an actual course for CEUs. But I watched it, and I learned little techniques, and I watched it. It wasn't technically Graston, it was a instrument assisted soft tissue. That was a course. But I learned different techniques, and I learned some better ways to handle the tools when I haven't previously taken any other course, and I felt like it was beneficial even though it didn't count towards my CEUs. And so that was, like, the nice thing about sometimes those programs is you can have multiple videos, you can test it, and, like, I realized, "Ooh, I really like that," and my goal is now to take in a full either Graston or Rock or something like that, that's more of that instrument assisted techniques that I will get a credit for eventually, and I do wanna go on and learn a little bit more about. So, like, it does like, those online ones aren't great, I'm not gonna lie. They're boring sometimes. They're the, "Hey, I gotta get this done quick." But if you're looking at sometimes trying to test the water out, they're a great way. If you're looking, "Hey, I need a refresher on a course," they're great. And again, the price overall for all of the videos that you get in those system or bank, I don't know what you call it, like, what would you call it? Program? Website? There we go, just website.
Just website,
Just
platform.
website. Platform, there you go, that's it's not bad for the price. Because again, it's depending on how you sign up, you can have multiple years, you can have 1 year of access, and so it is a great way that if you're like, "I'm curious to try one of the bigger courses that are more expensive," you can usually find something that's slightly related on a lot of these video sites, and that will at least give you a taste. And again, it might not count for your actual state. However, though, it might be beneficial because of the fact that you get to test out and you get to save money if you decide you don't like it. And it doesn't cost you
True.
any extra. So, like, that's one nice part.
Yeah, they have quite an extensive library to figure out
Mhm.
what you really interested in, and they separate it by the type of setting, the type of disorders, whether you want musculoskeletal, neurological. So you're able to filter out your searches, kind of browse their library, see what you want to find. Like you said, you can watch a video and not fully commit to it, just kind of get a little synopsis and like, oh, what is this
Mhm.
video about? But again, it's kind of like you're in class again. You're just watching this online video.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're interesting and the speaker is really good. Sometimes
They're boring
you
as all
fall asleep
get
like you are listening to this podcast. So,
Oh, hopefully not.
hey, if we're
I don't
helping
think
you
my
sleep,
voice is that
then
boring.
speak for
First
yourself.
of all, if you can sleep I was about to say, if you can sleep through my voice, bravo, because I know it's not that soothing.
And I'm going to start a channel on meditation and just
I was
work
about to
on
say
that.
Ken's yeah. Ken's like, "I got this." Take a
So
deep
I
breath
think, see,
in
yeah,
and out through, and
we'll
hold
work
on, I
on
gotta
it.
think about
Obviously,
that.
Laura doesn't meditate.
No.
So this way, so browsing through this library, it just kind of helps you identify where you want to commit your time to.
Mhm.
And again, like you get as much value as you put in. So you
Yes.
watch the full video, you take the full test, you really try to hone it down, then you get more value out of it. I'm not going to name any names, but I know of people who just kind of skip the video, go straight to the test, and sometimes you still pass it with flying colors. That's the problem with like these kind of platforms, and you're not in person because you could just get by. Because sometimes like our base knowledge that what we know, especially if we're looking at videos from settings that we're already in, sometimes the value of learning something new and implementing something new isn't always there.
Yeah.
So there's some where like I watched a video on an ACL rehab for this just past license renewal, and a lot of it wasn't stuff I didn't already know. Mainly because I work in an outpatient clinic. It is an ortho clinic, so we have seen patients with ACL tears. So again, like you have to, it's up to you whether you want to
Yes.
pick something you're completely unfamiliar with or something you are familiar with, but just know that your time and value, it's you have to balance it on your own.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. Everybody wants different things from these CEUs. If you join our Discord that Nick hosts called the PTA source, and we have a friend of ours who recommends different CEU credits to take. So he's taken a few and he's like, hey, this is really beneficial. But it just kind of goes back to this loop of, is it going to be beneficial for your setting?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just good knowledge to have overall, but it might be knowledge you never use again.
Yeah,
So these
like,
are
I'm not
just
gonna
kind
take
of,
a taping class if I'm doing, like, acute care, most likely. Like, it's not that you could never use that, but how often are you going to? Where neurological might be a better one because that's where you might be seeing some more like, logical deficits or things that you need to be aware of. So, it definitely like what Ken said is it all can vary based off of how much you decide to put in and how much you decide to take from it. And so you do get to kind of regulate yourself, which is nice. Again, if you got a busy lifestyle, it's helpful because you get to do it on your own time. It can take a whole year. It's not just like, hey, you have to give this whole entire weekend up. And you can take your time over time to get all your CUs done and renewed. So, like, there's definitely some benefits online. It's just how much you want to put in and how much you want to take out. The other benefit, I think, just one more I think I have, but you can also kind of test out the water for different settings with some of these videos. And but what I mean by that is like you can watch more of like the exercise that are geared toward geriatric and that will kind of tell you about like the patient population you're going to be working with a little bit more. You can watch those videos who are dealing with more peds, and you can see if that like, that interests me a little bit more. Or if right away you're turned off and you're like, maybe you should go into that. So like it is an area, or like Ken mentioned, vestibular. If you're watching a video about it and you find it really fascinating and you're like, okay, I'm really still interested in this segment of the field, then hey, maybe that's the route you go down. So there's definitely some benefit to it. It's just kind of whether or not, again, how much you put into it. But that's kind of like my pros and cons. I don't know if you have any more.
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I would just say to kind of keep track of everything you've taken. The convenient part about MedBridge is you have a previous courses or completed courses list, right?
hmm
So if you do all your or if you do all your CEUs through MedBridge, I already know what I've taken. I can download all my files. I can upload it to my program and all that, make it super easy. If you do in-person classes, you use one program for some classes, you do another program for some others. I would say just kind of keep yourself organized.
Yeah.
Download the certificates probably then and there, have a folder dedicated to it. So when it's time to renew, you're able just to quickly find them all, input them into it, because you have to upload all these documents into your
Dude, I
license
wish
renewal.
did it automatically.
And it would just kind of help save you some time. It's my last little pro tip
Yeah.
for everybody.
One pro tip I learned from MedBridge, or not from MedBridge, but from my PT I originally saw. MedBridge probably won't like it, or any online services won't like it. But if you get like kind of towards the end, back half of the year, you get onto MedBridge, you pay for it. And then early on for the next year, so then you take your 15, right? We'll just say in June, right? And you renew in August. So you take your 15 in June and then you renew. Well, you still got a year that you paid for MedBridge. Well, then you can take all your next
Round of
15.
CEUs.
And then you can kind of go a year off of paying for MedBridge. So you can kind of get 2 renewals out of 1 year.
For the price of one.
Yeah.
And again, if you're an PTA member, then you get a discount to MedBridge. So make sure you look into it, get the code, so you're saving yourself some money.
So that's pretty much it. But stay tuned, guys. We got some awesome interviews coming up again. Check back. I'm sorry, it's a little late, guys. I'm sorry. Check back on some of the old interviews. If you guys would like to join, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on. Again, this platform is for all PTAs. And so if you want to share, you got some stories you'd like to tell or information, please reach out. We'd love to have you on. Check out the new YouTube videos. And am I missing anything?
And
Also
yeah,
on
that's
Instagram.
pretty much everything.
Yeah. Till next time, guys.
All right, take care.
Bye.
The information in this video or podcast is not intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained in this video or podcast is for general information purposes only and does not replace your professors or a consultation from your own doctor or healthcare professional.